All righty. Good evening, everyone. Is it a good evening?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so this is lesson 2. You got through lesson 1 and you came back. That's a very, very good thing. Or you're watching the second DVD. That's a very good thing. So what did we learn? We learned that, for the most part, your body is way more capable than you probably ever gave it credit for. You probably realize that your body has capabilities that you did not know about, and that it operates way more efficiently and with way more intelligence than you had any clue about. So, now that we got your belief up a little bit about what your body's capabilities are, now we're actually going to start getting in to the meat of the content. And what today is, lesson 2, is nutrition in you. And this is usually where the old canned dietetics that have been sprayed at you for years from the American Dietetic Association, the American Medical Association, makes you want to fall asleep. But I can promise you this lesson is going to help you understand food and nutrition better than you have ever understood it before. So, what I want you to do is I want you to make sure to pay very, very close attention. Try not to let your mind wander too much. I know that kind of happens when you're consciously processing things, but pay close attention because it will all follow very, very closely to itself. So what I want to do first with the lesson is I want to define what I mean when I say nutrition, when I'm talking to you about nutrition. So nutrition is the supply of substances, i.e. nutrients, required, that's an important word, required by an organism directly or indirectly for its metabolic activities or for the provision of energy, growth, and or for the renewal of degraded components. Okay? The key words in that definition are required by the organism for energy and growth and for the renewal of degraded components. Nutrition is designed to help your body heal and to fuel your growth and to fuel your metabolic processes. Many of you right now are here because you feel your metabolic processes are failing you. And the answer is your metabolic processes aren't failing you. They are responding exactly the way that they're supposed to with the environment, tools, and resources they've been given. Now that may sound harsh, but don't take it that way. It's actually hope. It's hope that you have power to do something about it. And nutrition is going to be a big part of helping you do it. So the second part of the definition here is the act or process of supplying or receiving nutrients. And then number 3 talks about the scientific study, nutrition being a scientific study. Now, one thing that I want to point out right away is the difference between nutrition and food. Because I think you all can realize that there is a lot of stuff out there that you can put in your mouths that doesn't kill you right away, it doesn't poison you right away, but it is slowly poisoning you. And this is this very loose term that we use in this country called food. And what we call food is it's pretty much anything that doesn't kill you right away, that you can put in your mouth and somehow sustains life. And the definition of food, you'll see, isn't really all that different from nutrition. So food, and the word here that you can probably pick it out. Food here says any nutritious substance that people or animals eat or drink that plants absorb in order to maintain life and growth. Can anyone pick out the word that doesn't necessarily always fit? Nutritious, that's right. The problem is we have allowed the definition of food to lack nutrition. So when you hear the word food, it doesn't necessarily mean the definition of nutrition. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's helping to supply your body with the substances that are required for its growth. And there's a lot of that stuff out there, and I think you probably know what it is. But today we're actually going to hit the foundation of the proteins, the carbohydrates, the fats, what they do when you eat them, and how your body assimilates them. Okay? So, we've established there is a difference between nutrition and food. You can't say no to that. It says yes. So, a new term for bringing these concepts together is what I like to call whole food. In my household, when I say food, everyone knows what I mean. And eventually in your household, that'll be an automatic as well. What I want to do is I want to speak to it as whole food. And we're going to define that here in a little bit. Whole food will always be the least processed and closest to the source you can find. For example, if you look at an apple, and then you look at a bottle of applesauce, that's a difference between a whole food and a processed food. And what that apple went through in getting into that jar of applesauce can change the nature of the nutrition that the apple is supposed to deliver to your body. So that's one of the things that you'll begin to learn, and we'll hit that really hard in lesson 3, okay? So stay tuned for that. That'll help a lot. In the Whole Food Resource Guide, which is the other piece of material that you have, the other book, good and best ratings are used to help you make choices that are best for your individual stage of transition. When I say individual stage of transition, I mean that all of you will uptake this information at different speeds. And you need to know that that's okay. Because the faster you try to do this, the old cold turkey type thing, trying to jump out of your lifestyle and into this one, the greater chance you have of failing long term. And no one should be in this room for a flash in the pan, how quick results can I get? This process and this information is built and developed for you foundationally to be able to start changing the way that you do life at your pace and in your own way. So the good and best ratings in that guide, and we'll go through that guide a little bit towards the end here, kind of show you how you can take one step into the good category, and then the next step can go into the best category. We'll get you into even better foods. Good foods are going to be less processed. Best foods are going to take it a step further. Best foods are going to take into account the methods of raising the food and the practices in processing, packaging, and ingredients. Okay, so there's more insight in the best category. The good category is just getting you to whole food, from processed food as much as possible. The best category will take you the next step. The first group I want to talk about is protein. We all know protein as one of the major macronutrients, okay? We have all heard all kinds of things about protein on the news, on the Today Show, you hear about it all the time. But you never have it explained to you what protein's actually doing. You just hear it makes you lean, or it builds muscle, or it helps you lose weight. Well, what does it mean, and what is protein? Where is it found, and how does it work? That's what we're going to find out here. So proteins, or amino acids, otherwise known as amino acids, are known as the building blocks of the body. If you can think of bricks that make a foundation, that take the structure of a building, that's exactly what proteins are. There's not 1 ounce of you that is structural, that is not comprised of amino acids. So proteins are wildly important for your health because all of you are made up of large amounts of protein. Okay? Combinations of amino acids bind together to make the structures of the body, the bone, muscle, fat, and blood. That's the structural component of amino acids. Does that make sense? Okay, so they all get together, different combinations of these amino acids, and they make different structures. They can make cells, they can make organelles inside of cells, they can develop blood. All of you know that blood is a connective tissue. It's a water-based connective tissue. So proteins are a building mechanism. The body has more than 150,000 different amino acids. 150,000. You have way more amino acid combinations in your body than you do genes. Because proteins are the ones that actually regulate the activity of your DNA. Protein is extremely important. So you have more than 150 different amino acids that all perform different functions and carry out different tasks. One of the things that I want to touch base on really quick is helping you also understand that proteins are responsible for, they are enzymes. Has anyone ever heard of enzymes? Enzymes are what are responsible for all the biochemical reactions in your body. Anything that has to do with a chemical structure, a hormone, that is an enzyme, which is an amino acid combination. Is protein getting a little more important to you now? Knowing about it will change your life. Okay? Proteins are vital for cell reproduction. Remember when we talked about cell reproduction in lesson 1? How fast are cells turning over? Millions a second. Millions a second. So if you don't have adequate amino acids in your body, you're going to have a hard time reproducing cells at the speed that your body wants to. And that process we call aging. When things slow down, we can force them to slow down. And a lot of us do by not providing our body with adequate amounts of amino acids. So, cell reproduction, hormone production. Anyone here think you've got hormone problems? Anyone watching this DVD think you have hormone problems? Absolutely. It's one of the biggest problems we have in family medicine right now. When we would see patients, it was almost 50% of the female population came in with major hormone problems, imbalances, couldn't figure out why they had energy problems, and it was a big issue. I also talked last week about how antidepressants are the #1 most prescribed drug in the US and the UK. That's a big hormone issue there. Because when you lack energy, you tend to have problems with motivation, which makes you think something's wrong in your life, which can lead to depression. You can see how connected protein is to your well-being. Blood building, tissue repair, all of those things. Another thing that I want to touch base on real quick is help you realize that there are 2 different classes of proteins. When I just say protein to you, you need to know that there are different categories of protein. And it's not that difficult. You'll pick it up real quick. 2 different. One is called essential, and one is called non-essential. And it's pretty self-explanatory what that means. The essential amino acids mean you have to get them through your nutrition. Okay? So if anything in your diet, if anything when we're talking about nutrition science or biomedical science, when we say essential before it, it means you have got to get it through your lifestyle. What you may not realize is there are a ton of non-essential components in your body, meaning that your body actually can manufacture them on their own. Many of you don't realize this, but your body actually manufactures most of the vitamins it needs. There are very few essential vitamins because your body can make them. They're non-essential. Using different combinations and building blocks of other chemicals, your body actually can make the different types of non-essential compounds. So, without essential amino acids, the body is unable to complete all of the other cellular functions that are necessary for life. You have got to be getting the essential amino acids in your diet. That is one of the most important things in nutrition. We talked about how important protein was, amino acids. I just told you about all the different things that they do. The essential ones you've got to get in. The nice thing you'll find is the way that nature packages proteins is in a complete protein, all the essentials and non-essentials are together in a wonderful balance. So you don't even have to really do any work. All you have to do is plan out your meal and make sure you got it there. Here's a list. The list is in your book, so you don't have to memorize it. You can always go back and reference this. You'll see 20 amino acids here. If you go and look up and want to start reading more on proteins and amino acids, you'll see other places have 22. There were 2 other amino acids that science kind of found or created over the past several years. I'm kind of a purist, and I just go with the original 20. These were the original 20. So the essentials are on the left. The non-essentials are on the right. Okay? One of the things I want to touch base on real quick is with the essential amino acids. Many of the essential amino acids are very, very important for brain and nervous health because they're sulfur-containing, okay? So when you have a sulfur-containing amino acid, which is found primarily in eggs and meat, you are building your brain and your nervous system because there's a lot of sulfur involved in those processes, okay? That's an important thing. Essential components of nutrition must be consumed through the intake of nutrition, while non-essential components of nutrition are able to be made in the body by using combinations of other essential amino acids. There are 8 essential amino acids, and most of the time, you will find all 8 of the essential amino acids present in meat, dairy, and egg proteins. It's very difficult to find those 8 amino acids in balance or even present at one time in vegetable-based proteins. So yes, I am an advocate of appropriately sourced, we'll get that in lesson 3, appropriately sourced meat, dairy, and egg proteins. They provide your body with the building blocks it needs, without a doubt. Yes, you can get different combinations of these essentials from plant-based products. It's a lot more difficult. It's a lot harder to eat appropriately if you're not using animal-based proteins to get those essential amino acids in. And it doesn't take a huge amount, but it takes a steady supply, okay? So plant-based proteins, as I mentioned before, do not normally contain all 8 essential amino acids. Okay? Okay, let's let our brains expose a little. Take a deep breath in. You're probably not breathing. Take a few deep breaths. Okay, let's process what we just learned. You guys are extremely intelligent, so I know you're picking it up just as fast as we're going through. What I want to touch on is just a few of the myths behind protein consumption that the medical establishment is kind of cemented in place for a really long time, and what I would call conventional dietetics, because there's a group of dietitians that are starting to move into more progressive nutrition and medicine now, which is actually really good because they know a lot about science. But there's still kind of that old staunchy group of dietitians that were trained for the hospital TPN begs, and they're really not very flexible. And what you'll hear from them is that protein's dangerous. You'll hear that protein can damage your body. It can damage your kidneys. Now, let's go back to what we learned just 10, 15 minutes ago. How much is going on in your body that depends on amino acids? Pretty much everything. Could we say that? Pretty much everything in your body involves amino acids on some level, if not directly, indirectly, right? So to say that protein is somehow harming your body is kind of an interesting statement. What I want to do is I want to walk you through the science really quick on why protein is not harming your body. Okay? So the myth that too much protein is dangerous to your kidneys is simply unsubstantiated by either scientific proof or anecdotal evidence. There is not any research out there that can prove that this is what's going on. The only research that's out there somehow tries to associate spilling of protein into urine as being a protein consumption problem. Not the case. I'll explain to you why protein spills. And there's no anecdotal evidence either. Out of all of the patients that I've worked with over many, many, many years, I've worked with a lot of them who have nephrotic and kidney problems. They have kidney disease. They are on dialysis. Those people improve so much when they get on protein. You want to know why? Because of all of the things we talked about before, all of the things that protein is responsible for is exactly why people who have disease or health problems start to get better when it's introduced into their lifestyle. Okay? So let's touch on this myth real quick. The number one group of people in the United States who have kidney failure are diabetics. Diabetics are the number one group that experience kidney failure. Diabetes is a sugar problem, isn't it? I've never heard of a blood protein test being taken on a diabetic. It's a sugar problem. The body isn't metabolizing sugar appropriately. So what's happening is you've got these sugar molecules, and if any of you have ever seen a sugar molecule, it looks like a ball and spikes. It looks really mean. It's really jagged. And when that gets in your body and starts bumping around in your blood vessels and in these organs and in the tiny little capillaries that filter all this blood, you get a lot of damage. So a lot of the protein damages kidneys thing has actually come from protein being read in a diabetic's urine. Let me tell you why. Okay? Most of the time, what we're seeing now is diabetes is accompanied by high blood pressure as well. So you've got kind of this double whammy. So you got high blood sugar levels, and you also have the blood being pumped at higher pressures throughout your vascular system. Okay? What's happening when protein spills into the urine is it is being glycosylated or surrounded by sugar. The interesting thing that you'll find out is they're called glomerules. Glomerules filters in your kidneys are tiny little capillaries that actually recycle protein back into the blood. They do not allow a normal protein to leave your body because proteins are that important. The only protein that leaves your kidneys that ends up in your urine is protein that's surrounded by a sugar molecule. Do you want to know why the body dumped it? Because it's not useful anymore. It's surrounded by sugar. It's been compromised. What is diabetes? A sugar problem. Protein is not the problem because the kidneys actually have mechanisms built in place and filtering mechanisms to put the protein back into the blood. If protein's spilling, it's surrounded by sugar. End of story. That's the way it is. And another thing that the glomerulus filters do is they recycle sodium, phosphorus, and potassium, essential minerals, key catalysts for enzyme reaction and biochemical reactions in your body. So a lot of you have heard that protein's bad for your kidneys and that salt causes high blood pressure. And here, when we go back to the very basis foundation of how kidneys work, they're actually recycling the stuff, the useful stuff. Okay? So that is very, very, very important that you understand that concept. Protein is an immense part of your body. All 100 trillion cells are made up of 50% protein, roughly. Each cell, structurally, is made up 50% of amino acids. These are complex combinations and need to be supported by your diet. A large amount of the protein you eat, many of you don't know this either, a large amount of the protein you eat is actually used in its own digestion. Let's back up and remember what we called proteins before. Proteins are enzymes. Some proteins are. And enzymes are actually what are responsible for breaking your food down in the digestive process. So what happens is a lot of the protein that you actually are eating lends itself to its own digestion. It's actually a very efficient process. But a lot of the protein does get consumed. It gets burned in the process of that digestion. So basically, the numbers at least in the medical physiology books, are roughly 60 to 70% of the protein you're eating is just burned up, digesting itself, breaking down itself. This is why a lot of the recommendations from dietitians and things like that over the years, the professional recommendations for the really low amounts of protein can actually be really detrimental because you're consuming really, really low amounts of protein and 60 to 70% of it is going up in smoke just in its own digestion. So we need to get our protein levels up because we need what's left over to go and do all the other things we talked about, to go be the structure of your body. So, this is where we stand on the issue based on the information that we have. Until we have any conclusive evidence that protein is causing people anything but positive health outcomes, such as the weight you're looking for, strength, strong bones, energy, it's simply irresponsible to be trying to scare people into not eating protein. Protein is not dangerous. It is vital to the functioning of your body. Okay? We can all agree on that.